Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third and final day of the American Express Leadership Summit. We have so much planned for you today, and we're so excited to be here because we are flourishing and we are thinking really big. Thank you for all of you who've joined us over the past 3 days. It's been an enlightening journey as we've just thought about leadership perspectives from all around the world. I personally want to extend a special greeting to all of our American Express Leadership Academy Alumni Network members, which I am a proud member of, having participated in the Independent Sector NGen program in 2015. This annual gathering is an opportunity to bring together our global community of social sector leaders who've participated in leadership academies. This year, we're engaging in our first ever virtual summit and our largest gathering to date. Our daily keynote speaker conversations are a way to bring the message of this summit to a larger audience. This year's theme is our path forward: lead, listen, and flourish. Today, we focus on the topic of flourish as we engage in the conversation. My name is Terri Broussard Williams. I'm the author of Find Your Fire, and I join you today from Charleston, South Carolina. I am delighted to be joined by two leaders who've turned moments into movements, including Greta Rios, president and founder of Ollin and a member of our alumni community, and Margianta Surahman, who goes by Gian, founder and executive director of Emancipate Indonesia. Also, a representative from our global community. Greta from Mexico and Gian joins us from Indonesia. Before we start our conversation, we also want to hear from you. Please send your questions one of two ways. You can drop it in the chat box in the Q&A that you see, and if you're joining us on social media, type your question into the comment section on Facebook, or use the hashtag AmexLeads. We look forward to hearing from you. So let's get started. Greta and Gian, thank you for joining us today. I've had the opportunity of speaking with both of you a little bit ahead of today's discussion, and I'm so inspired just by the life you live, the way you have encouraged others to lead, and all that you've given to the American Express Alumni Leadership Network. I want to give you each just a couple of minutes to tell us a little bit about your background, what you do, and why it's important for you to flourish as a leader. Greta, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Terri. So first of all, I have to say it's a great honor being in this panel. I've been reading a little bit about Gian's work, and I am really, really amazed by all the things that he has accomplished. What about me? Okay, so I am a Mexican woman. I started an NGO 10 years ago, and it has been a very, very interesting journey for me. Being a millennial, this has been my longest job ever. And to be honest, I never thought I would be staying for 10 years in Ollin. But every single day we have new challenges and new things that are coming, and time has really flown. You know, when at the beginning of this year, my team told me like, hey, how are we celebrating? And I'm like, what are we celebrating? And they said, well, the 10th anniversary. And I'm like, no, there must be a mistake. You know, there's no way we are turning 10, but we are. And one of the things that we are working on is precisely leadership, because we believe that we need to expand leadership to everyone. Everyone should understand the power of their individual decisions and of their individual influence in those around them. So one of the things that we do is we make sure that citizens in Mexico are aware of the power that they wield in their hands and in their heads and in their hearts when it comes to taking democratic decisions, when it comes to getting involved in communities, when it comes to fostering dialogue with your neighbors and things like that. About the flourish thing, I've been thinking a lot since I had this first conversation with Abby, and I'm pretty sure you guys also did, and my mind was blown away. I was thinking like, you know, everyone is so upset about the pandemic, and we are so tired, and we are so just like fed up with it, and we're just waiting for it to finish so we can go back to whatever we were doing before. And I think that we haven't really realized that we have a great opportunity to go someplace better. And that is what I want to talk today with you, Terri and Gian. But I won't say anymore, because I want to create like a thrill for all our listeners. So thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, your energy is thrilling. And I just love what you said about connecting your head and your heart. So many times as leaders, we sail through and we don't connect our head and our hearts, so that, we see technical solutions, when if we connected our head and hearts, we could all find easier solutions through adaptive leadership, which I know so many of us that have gone through American Express programs have learned about. So Gian, I want to hear a little bit from you, how you connect your head and your heart as a leader in Indonesia, and how you just feel about the path forward.
Yeah, thank you, Terri, and thank you, Greta, as well. I also read stuff about you as well. Both of you are amazing. I'm very honored to be with you, amazing women here on the panel. So I'm Gian. I'm from Indonesia. I also built my own NGO, but not 10 years ago like Greta. It's still new. I think it's since 2017, and also since 2015, I've been organizing on grassroots campaigns to campaign for several causes like health, public health, social justice, etc. But actually, what really inspired me in the first place to learn about connecting our hearts and our brains as leaders is actually my own mom. So I was raised. I'm a proud son of a single, hardworking mother who actually gender equality wasn't an option for her; it was a reality, and I learned it from a very young age. And I think she taught me two things about integrity and about walk out or talk. So, but integrity is really about like doing everything you say on public, also on on personal level, even though when nobody sees you, and walk our talk, which means like you're not only preaching to others, but you are reaching out to others as well and setting examples through your actions. And I think I really see those qualities in my mom. And I think it's a full circle that now today I join both of you here, amazing, powerful women, and also many other amazing women in leadership now, in the governments, in other sectors as well, and in this panel. So I'm just very honored to be here, and I'm looking forward to discuss more things with all of you here.
Well, we are honored to be here with you and to learn from both of you today. I want to start by asking you a question. In preparing for today's conversation and summit, I looked up the word flourish, and it means to grow, to make bold, sweeping changes in a state of activity. And so those words resonated for me with our current times. We've just been in a state of change for the last 12 to 18 months. Can you share some of your initial perspectives on the importance of flourish in the context of leadership?
Sure. Should I go first?
You can go first, Greta.
Thank you. Okay, next time Gian goes first, okay? So, flourish. Flourish is a super amazing word, which means flower, right? So I think it's very symbolic how nature creates this amazing process for plants and for animals and for everyone that gets you prepared. So you go through a lot of things before you can truly flourish, and then when you are ready, your flower opens, right? That means like you go out to the world and you announce to the world that you're ready for what's coming next. So I think in the context of leadership, it applies in several ways, and especially right now, since we've been preparing, we have been waiting at home, and we have been doing virtual events and stuff, and we are ready. I think we are, as leaders now, telling the world that we are ready for whatever is going to come. But you know what? When a plant flourishes, when this little flower opens, it knows exactly what's going to happen, right? It is announcing to the world that it wants to reproduce, that it's ready, and that it's that it's willing to create new life. So I think in that way, using that analogy, that we as leaders, as international leaders, must understand that it is a responsibility that we need to carry on. We are about to create life, to create new life for us as a society and for the people who work with us and follow us and believe in our cause. And that is, number one, amazing. But number two, is a great opportunity of doing it better. So what are the things that we did before as leaders that we don't want to do anymore? What are the behaviors that we want to stop? And here I want to talk a little bit about this talk that I attended last year, and it was given by the Ministry of Environment, I think, in Sweden. And he said that last year, since we had all the lockdowns and since people were stuck at home, the carbon gas emissions lowered more than the Paris Accords goal, right? Which is great. He said, like, these are great news, guys. It means we can do it. We are capable of doing the good things that we know that we aim at, right? But it should not take a pandemic. It should not take you forcibly having to stay home and stop everything you were doing to do the right thing. So how are we going to be able to do the right thing when we're not forced by nature to do it? And with that, I am yielding the microphone to Gian.
Yeah, before you get into that, Gian, Greta, I think you said some things that we just have to double click on that resonated with me. We are talking about being in our homes and just having this great reset, but also the great me set, right? So for this past year to 18 months, we've had the opportunity to till the soil, to water it, and to really come out as a leader with a new perspective. And so while it might feel like, we are facing obstacles as to how do we return to the work that we did before, it's truly an opportunity to have that great reset and great me set, and to lead in a different way, to lead again with connecting your head and your heart. So Gian, I want to turn to you and ask you, what does flourish mean, again, in the context of being a leader?
Yeah, thank you, Terry, and it was very inspiring answer as well, Greta. I think for me, so I've been in a leadership position on like several levels, on a grassroots level, on a national level, on international panels. But I think what really connects them all is actually the sense of collectiveness and selflessness. So I think for us to flourish as an individual, we have to also realize that we cannot flourish without people around us. So I think it's never a personal effort. It's never an individual effort. It's always a teamwork, whether we would like it or not. Because somehow along the way, when we climb the stairs, we climb up the ladder everywhere, corporate, nonprofit, etc. There's always people, soldiers that we are, walking on, that they help us, to reach those places. So I think it's about, also putting other people's as well before, putting ourselves in our personal and ambition goals, because eventually it will pay off, because collective care is self-care, and we'll really learn it, in leadership when it's about maintaining the balance between giving freedom and liberty to our team, but also giving them guidance as well from what we know from our existing experiences and our existing networks and resources. So I think a prophet I'm a Muslim, and in my prophet Muhammad said, like, too much on something is never good. So I think too much micromanaging our team as a leader is not good. But too much laissez-faire and letting them, go as well without guidance is also not good. So I think it's always about the balance, and in between those balances where flourish comes in, because it's a compromise between liberty, freedom, and also responsibility. I think that's what flourish means to me, Tara.
That's beautiful. And it's actually the perfect segue for the next question. I said earlier that, truly we have the opportunity to turn obstacles into opportunities and something greater than it once was. And to that end, I'm also a firm believer that challenge doesn't really define who we are as leaders. And we can use challenges instead to inspire ourselves and even highlight individuals around us, and really look for that inner strength that one possesses. So I want to ask you, how do you inspire yourself and how do you inspire your team so that they could flourish? Do you have any practical tips or tools? We'd love to hear them. Why don't you go first, Gian?
Okay, now I'll go first. Thank you, Greta and Terri. So I think my practical tips has always been listening. So listening is the secret to speaking, right? And other kinds of actions as well we take as leaders. So be compassionate. Put yourself in their shoes, in your team's shoes, because not everybody can walk in the same pace like us. We cannot leave anyone behind. So my practical tips, usually when there is an internal conflict in my organization, there is a misunderstanding with any stakeholders in advocacy and everything, just first listen and try to hold that, your inner self that's trying to come out and shout and speak and, lash out, be more reflective, listen more than you speak, because you will never know when you reflect, when you listen, what kind of, insights or revelations that you will get from your surroundings. So I think listening is simply my tips and what I've been doing for the past several years in several organizations, and it worked out pretty well as well. And sometimes we just hope people who are our counterparts, like government sectors, private sectors, nonprofit sectors also, they can listen to each other more and find more commonalities rather than assuming each other's only based on what we think of them, but more like on common understanding, and understanding can only come from listening. So yeah, that's my answer, Terri.
It's fantastic. A lot of times people go to a community and they just begin to work. They never pause to listen and to learn what is needed in that community, and first become a cultural ambassador before you can be a servant leader. So I love that you just lean in and using your ear as your superpower. Greta, what about you? What are some tools that you use to flourish as a leader and as someone who leads a team?
Well, that's a very big question, Terri. So as all of you, I'm pretty sure last year was really challenging for me and my team. In the years previous, we had been placing our idea of growth and impact in different things. One of them was, for example, the fact that in 2018, we were able to have a super nice office. We were so proud of it, and it was amazing, and we loved it, and we were really devoting a lot of energy and a lot of resources to having this office, right? And then 2020 came, and we had to close it down. We had to move out of there, and we actually had to put all our things in storage. And that was a very sad day. I was having these super bitter thoughts, oh my God, where are we going? And it almost felt like failure, right? Because for us, the idea of actually having a physical office that was big and beautiful, and that we decorated and that we loved so much, was like a daily reminder that we were doing fine and that people believe in our cause and stuff. And then something really weird happened. The day that we moved everything into the warehouse, everyone left, and I was the one who had to close the thing and close the lock, right? When I was closing the lock, I was kind of really sad. And then I closed it, and suddenly inside my head, I had this phrase, new beginnings. And it was so powerful because I was really feeling down. I was really feeling like we were losing something. And now well, more than a year has passed. I have to say that we don't miss the office anymore. I have to say that we learned how to flourish and how to be resilient and how to manage a team virtually. So the team in my organization has been growing. Our work has been expanding, and that means, for example, that we have new team members. And we have new team members that I have never met in person, and that was another great barrier that we had to topple down. It was like, I don't know if they're tall, I don't know if they're short, I don't know, like, if they like wearing like super formal clothes or not. But that is something that is keeping us going. So now we of course changed the way that we do work normally, but something opened up. Like, I think that we have never been closer as a team. I think that we know the people who are part of this team even better or even more than when we could see each other every day. And that is something that I want to cherish, and that is something that that we as leaders need to keep and need to know how to make it stay, even if we are going back on the old road again. And I have to say, we're not going back, right? Like, right now we we found out that we don't need to physically be in the same place. So right now we're thinking on how to transition whenever we are ready for it in the world. And I think that we will never have another office as beautiful as we did, but in exchange for that, we're getting so much more. So I think that the lesson to learn, and I agree with you, Gian, is to listen. Because sometimes you are so focused on this fixed idea that you can't see that there's so much more that you could have, because you're like totally focused on. I was focused on, I love the office, I love having this house as an office, I love it, it's so colorful, it's so nice. But maybe it wasn't that nice, right? So you should be able to listen, and to listen with your heart, and that is the hard part.
Absolutely. And had you not taken that moment, to listen to your surroundings and allow your head and heart to speak to each other, you would have missed that prompt that it was a new beginning. But I love the stories that you both shared. It's truly the definition of flourish, that sweeping gesture during a time of change. And just a reminder that what was then doesn't have to be now, and definitely doesn't have to be our new way forward. So for those of you who are joining us, I am chatting with these incredible leaders. Greta is in Mexico, Gian is in Indonesia, and we are here just focused on flourishing and the path ahead. We're at the halfway mark for our time together today. So get those questions ready. Again, you can drop them in the chat box if you're joining us through the platform. And if you're on Facebook, be sure to drop your questions in the comment section and use the hashtag MX Leads. Well, I want to ask you all another question before we get into some questions from the audience. I often say that fire starters are people who see something that others ignore, but they take the first step to enact change. And you've both showed us today that you are fire starters in the biggest way possible. But in order to do this work, because it's not easy, it's not easy to shut the door of your office and to continue to, operate a nonprofit or to live out the mission every day. You have to focus on yourself sometimes. How do you continue to be inspired and motivated? Gian, I'll start with you.
Right. How do I keep myself motivated? This is also, I think, the question of the century for me, because I think it's on everybody's mind, right? How do I get myself up from the bed every morning? What keeps me going? Life is like a bicycle. When you stop paddling, you will fall, etc. But I think what really keeps me up, at night, and makes me wanna come out of my bed and work is actually when I realize how privileged I am. So the moments when I check my privilege in a way that I'm a cis heterosexual man in Indonesia, a Muslim, which is a majority, religion in Indonesia. So I'm very much lucky. I've never been so much held back in my life, aside from my personal family stories and several other things that happened in my life. So when I check out my own privilege and I saw some people still living paycheck on paycheck, they lost their jobs, they couldn't unionize, and then some children started smoking from the age of 2 years old. When I saw those things and I tried to relate them to my own personal experience, what I've been through in my life, that's why I became a child rights advocate, because I had a domestic violence when I was a kid. I don't want any more kids like me who didn't speak up. Why I work in tobacco control, because my grandfather died of stroke and he was addicted to cigarettes. I don't want more people to be like my grandfather. Why I work in a workers' rights issues and modern slavery, because my mom was a victim of one of them, and I don't want more people to suffer like my mom. So basically, I internalize my own personal experiences. So then, whenever I work on certain issues, they are not only issues. They are my motivations. They are the reasons why I'm doing these things. I have a purpose. I have something that drives me, and I want to leave a legacy. What kind of legacy do I want to leave? Do I want to leave a bunch of money that will eventually be spent, probably materials, or will it be ideas? Will it be actions that can be replicated throughout generations? Good deeds that flourish from one generation to another. So actually, those are what keeps me motivated to actually realize my purpose is actually really, really personal, but also really, really collective, because I realize that I'm not alone, and I don't want more people to have been through what I've been through in a bad way, but I want more people to realize the strength that they have to face what happens in their life, just like how I could have survived with all of my privileges. So yeah, basically in the end, my mind hack would be, we are not defined by what happens in our lives. We are defined by how we react to what happened in our lives. So maybe that's my little mind hack, and that's what keeps me motivated. That's my answer to it.
I love that so much. I love that so much. Yeah, it's so true. When you get connected and personally invested in a mission, sometimes it makes the work really easy, but sometimes it also makes it really hard because you care so much. So that mind hack is a tool that I'm going to start using. But Greta, I want to learn from you a little bit. How do you keep yourself inspired and motivated? Because you too do important work that is not easy.
You're right, and I think that this is something that I've been struggling with, because it's not easy, sometimes, and especially for social leaders. How do you define failure, right? So it's not so easy, and it's really common to think like, what am I doing? Like is it really, like, am I? Sometimes you feel like you are lying to everyone, right? Like, I'm like, oh my God, I have people who think that I'm right, or that I'm doing the right thing, and who actually work at my organization. Like, I cannot let them down, like, but sometimes I have a big case of imposter syndrome. So it really gets to me sometimes. But something that has helped me understand, number one, that I am not in this road alone. And number two, has humbled me down a bit, is talking to other leaders. So I keep some friends who are in situations similar to myself. I am part of course of the Amex Leadership Academy alumni group. And I am an Amex alumni because I am an Ashoka Fellow. So I also keep some Ashoka Fellows as friends, and I try to talk to them about what's happening and how that's making me feel, because I think that having this reassurance that, number one, I'm not totally nuts, and number two, that other people are going through the same, well, not exactly the same, but like similar situations, it really helps keep the focus on what you're doing, and pretty much understand that leadership is a journey, and it has ups and it has downs. But when you share it with other people who are going through similar things, it gets easier, and at least you feel like you can share and you can learn from others, because sometimes it gets really lonely, and sometimes it's really hard because, for example, like in my team, people want me to take decisions, like hard decisions. They come to me and they ask me like, what should I do? And my answer is always like, you decide and you become responsible and you own your decision, right? But they still think like, oh, she said I could decide, so like if it goes wrong, it's on her, right? So sharing that with others, I think helps, like number one, make that load a little bit smaller, but also believe in what you're doing with all your heart, because sometimes some days I wake up and I'm like, what am I doing? Right? So listening to others and sharing with others has really, really helped.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I too have a WhatsApp hype group chain. And so we can send each other, pleasantries and cheer each other on, but we can also ask each other questions, because you're right. Sometimes you need to know that you're just not crazy and that you are doing what's right. So we have less than 20 minutes left, and I want to get to some questions from our audience because there's some cool ones that have come in. And this is one that I love. It is from someone in Zambia who asks, how has your culture helped you cope with a pandemic? Greta, why don't you start, and then we'll let Gian answer.
That's a really hard one because, well, as you know, I'm Mexican, and the Mexican culture is like totally pandemic not ready, so we like big gatherings. We are all touchy and huggy, and we really, really, really miss each other. But I would say that one thing that we Mexicans have is that we are extremely resilient. We have earthquakes, we have economic crisis, we have a lot of horrible things that happen to us on a regular basis. So we are prepared for dealing with the unknown and for dealing with adversity. So I think that in that sense it has helped. But in general, I think that we Mexicans are not having the best response to the pandemic because we just don't understand how to follow rules. So we don't really follow the lockdowns, we don't really follow medical advice, and that is making the situation a bit more complicated. So the good side is that since we are very, very, very resilient, we are facing it, like head on, which is good. But I do think we could be doing a lot of things in a much better way.
Leon, what about you? How's your culture helped you during the pandemic?
Yeah, here's the thing. It's quite complicated because Indonesia is an archipelago. So we have, I think, more than 10,000 islands and 700 tribes and 1,000 languages, which is a lot. So when you go to another, island, you will somehow, or even, another city, you will find like certain new languages and dialects and customs and cultures. But basically, what unites us all as Indonesians, I think, is our sense of collectiveness. So we have something that is called gotong royong, which means to cooperate with each other, that we have each other's backs. So basically, that's what we did in Indonesia. There's a lot of people, crowdfunding for people who lost their jobs or living paycheck to paycheck in the pandemic. My organization also organized one of those donations, and then we also gathered young workers, Indonesia workers with disability, trans workers, minorities, all kinds of workers. We gathered them and actually to listen to them. What are their grievances in their workplace? How do they fight for their rights to get better wage, better payment? But that all comes from our sense of collectiveness. So we Indonesians, we like to gather around. If it's not a pandemic, we like to, just sit around in a coffee shop, maybe ordering only one glass and then sit there for hours, which is actually, pain in the ass. You shouldn't do that as a customer. You should order more, of course, if you're going to stay for a long time. But we like to gather around with people and talk and share our grievances with our friends and reconnect. And it's also nearing Eid Mubarak for the Muslims in Indonesia. Usually it's a time where we gather with families, but because of the pandemic, of course, we use technology and we call with our families, in our hometowns, just to keep that connection, our collectiveness intact. So I think our collectiveness has somehow made it better, even though maybe we have our grievances about how the policies are being mistreated and not really working for the people, only working for the few, 0.1% of the society. But the collectiveness of us, a horizontal solidarity, actually, that really keeps us going. We help each other a lot. So I think that's really what I can be most proud of from my culture, from these thousands islands. What really unites us all, the gotong royong, the cooperation.
I love that so much. And listening to you both speak, I thought of my own home state, Louisiana. We are also resilient, Greta. We have lived through a lot of hurricanes and a lot of floods, but there's just this joie de vivre, joy of living that exists. And no matter the situation, we know that we will pull through and that there's always a reason to find joy. We say all the time, our hearts are filled with joy. There's some really cool questions that we've gotten from people who are watching us today. And I know they want to hear from you. In fact, Kira asks, how do you help a team flourish? So how do you help a team flourish after they have devastating news? Greta, why don't you go first?
Sure. I love your question, Kira. And it's a hard one. And I think what we do in my team, and this is something we learned the hard way, is that the first thing you have to do is acknowledge that you are going through hard times. We used to overlook like hard news or bad news, like, okay, we don't care about that, let's just move on. And that's not the way to go. So we have to understand what we're going through. We need to understand what everyone in the team is perceiving from this, because it's not the same what I'm thinking this news means and what everyone else is thinking. And once we're done with that, and once we have accepted the fact that this is happening, then we move on, and then we use this to get us to another place, right? So I don't know. I mean, devastating news can go from we did not get the grant to someone in the team is leaving, or we are having, I don't know, legal problems with someone, right? So it really can go in a very big range of things. But I think that communication is super important, and having an understanding team and having a real team that has each other's back can help you use that extreme situation, whatever it is, to make the team come closer and to make the team flourish after it. Like, for example, last year we had some of the team members with COVID, right? And it was hard. We were not having a good time, but we kept communication open, and we kept seeing, like, if these people needed anything, if maybe they needed to go to the hospital, and we had like a plan and stuff. And this helped us come closer as a team, right? And that, of course, has opened new doors. And I mean, like, thankfully nothing happened, and everyone is back on track, and everything is great. But I think that whenever you want to use adversity as a motivation or as a trigger for something bigger or for something better, you really need to acknowledge what's happening and be very honest to yourself and to your team. Because if you don't, then you're not going. You might be able to go back to exactly what you were before, but that's not where you want to go, right?
Yes, it's so wise. Gian, I know you have some more wise and inspirational words for us. How do you help your team flourish after devastating news?
Yeah, I'm totally on board with Greta there. I think the first step, of course, we have to acknowledge first that it happened. Whatever we do now, we cannot turn back time. It's already happened. Indonesians say it. Rice has become porridge, and you cannot turn a porridge back into a rice. It's already a porridge. So what can you do with that porridge? What can you do with that news that already happened? But of course, as leaders, maybe the first reaction would be, I have to appear tough for my team, right? I have to appear tough. I have to, to actually be there for them. I have to hold my tears. But actually, that's just part of those toxic masculinity that I would not want to embrace, because we need to normalize. I think from aside from acknowledging the problem first, we need to acknowledge failures. We need to normalize that failures does happen. We're all humans. It doesn't mean that we are being held back from progress or anything. But by making mistakes, by having devastating things happen in our lives, that's where we can know where we can flourish next. Basically, because once again, my mind hack has always been: we are not defined by what happened to our lives, but we are defined by how we react to what happened to our lives. But also, how we react is not only about appearing tough, but also about embracing all of the emotions that you have in that very moment. And when you, as a leader, you dare to be vulnerable, to embrace those vulnerability, that vulnerability becomes strength when it comes in numbers, when your team are with you, crying together, being sad together. I don't know, maybe you can have a karaoke together, but then sing the sadness away, but just feel it. Don't brush it off. Don't sweep it under the rug, because you will never know that you might be depraved of this kind of emotions when you are in the middle of things that you are doing, a lot of projects, a lot of KPIs, a lot of reports. But in these very moments, you actually have the space. This is the best way for you to feel all kinds of emotions. And then after that, you can build back better. You can come back stronger. And, with your teams having your back, not playing tough or anything, then you can really be tough at that point with your team, because you've been with them through valleys and mountains and every kinds of, waves in the oceans that now they will follow you everywhere. And yeah, and that is very good for your cause and the things that you want to achieve with your team in your life. So that's my answer.
I love it. I'm actually going to add some chocolate syrup to that porridge and eat it. But both of what you said is just so right and resonates with me. A lot of times we don't give ourselves the space to feel. We just continue on that task list and just, over process, but we stay on that hamster wheel. And so it's when we pause and when we have even a failure festival or a fail fest, that we become more innovative and generative, and we grow and flourish. So absolutely spot on and right. We need that time for ourselves too. And that leads to a question that we got from Allison, who lives in Michigan. And she wants to know what daily rituals or habits you have that allow you to flourish as a leader. And we have about 5 minutes left. So Greta, why don't you go and give us a short answer, and then Gian will let you follow up.
I was hoping for Gian to start, but it's okay. Daily morning practices that allow me to flourish. I don't know. I listen to the news while I'm taking a shower, and this is important to me because I do a lot of things that have to do with politics in Mexico and stuff. And I mean, when I listen to the news, this is something that nobody knows, but I actually talk back to the radio, right? So. And that makes me feel like this is not happening to me. Like I am participating in the news, or I am having an opinion, and I think that lets me like let some steam go off before I start my day. So I would say this is something that keeps me going and keeps my mind sharp. How about you, Gian?
Yeah. So if it's not a fasting month, because I'm fasting now, but if it's not fasting month, it's simply water in the morning for me, like mineral water. I think it works better than coffee. And because I'm also an advocate for healthy living and preventing non-communicable diseases, so I will not suggest smoking. I will not suggest alcohol. I will not suggest greasy food. So basically, yes, what you eat and what you consume in the morning really defines your whole day. Believe me, I've been there on those junk food days as well. So basically, it really defines your whole day, and then your whole day defines your whole week, and your whole week defines your whole month. So basically, be very careful about what you eat, and and maybe do some exercise. I'm saying this to myself because I don't think I've done it enough, and I'm making the pandemic as an excuse, but I shouldn't. So I think I should exercise more as well, because it really improves your mood as well as a routine. To actually make your day better, and you can flourish more in your workplace.
Yeah, did you see? You talked about water, and then Greta had some, so she's already on track. She is flourishing. Well, you all, thank you so much. You have inspired us from the start of this hour to the end, and you've given us so many tools, tips, and tricks to help us flourish. So I'm sure when we all get together again in the future, and that we look at the path ahead, we will be ready to lead, and we'll be able to do it with faith and fortitude and connecting our head and our heart. So many of the themes that you share with us today. So we are at the end of our time together. I wish we could talk more, but you all are fantastic, and our future is so bright because of individuals such as you and the Amex Leads community. All of you inspire me and help me grow, be productive, and flourish. And so I hope the same for you. I want to thank you all for joining us today and for your insightful questions from all over the world. We really, really want to thank American Express for their support, this conversation, and the entire 3-day summit. I want to invite each of you to learn more about the American Express Leadership Alumni Network at leaderstories.org. You'll find more about the network, but also inspirational stories from leaders who turn moments into movements every day. And if you are an alumni or attendee of this week's full summit, here's where you get a quick break, and we invite you to return at the top of the hour for the Future of Work presented by Dell Technologies, a fitting follow-up to this conversation. So now we'll leave you with a special video from Leader Stories that highlights one of our dynamic members of our alumni community. The video footage was captured prior to 2020, but the story still holds true today. Thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoy our next segment, The Future of Work, sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Navigating the transition to active CEO. This transition was relatively surprising and more rapid than one might anticipate, especially transitioning from a founder to a non-founder-led organization. There's always going to be this feeling, I'm not ready. We're never ready. We have to go forth because we're going to learn as we do. And I think the key is really reaching out. The Amex Leadership Academy has been a huge help. Like, I've reached out to people who have gone through similar transitions or even served in a similar role, and they just gave me great perspective and advice. From this transition, I really learned that great leaders are ever evolving. They're seeking that input. They're establishing a path. And it's less about having a defined map that people need to follow. You're giving people an idea of where we want to go and then inviting them to create how we get there.